Hey, this is Professor Triplet, and today we're going to make a leaf in Maya. But first, before we do that, we are going to need a leaf texture. So anybody who's following this tutorial may want to go to textures.com, sign up for a free account, and then log in because we're going to go ahead and grab a leaf from here. So I'm going to type in leaf into the search section, and I'm going to pick this particular leaf right here. The reason why I'm picking this leaf is because some of these leaves have highlights on them, and I want to avoid that. Plus, this leaf already has a transparency in it. It already has a cutout done for me, so it's going to save me a little bit of time. So after you find this leaf, if that's the one you want to do, you can go ahead and just click on it, and you can download from here. So you just click on this and download it. It should download into whatever folder you tell it. And then we're going to jump into Photoshop. So this is what we're going to end up with. So let me show you how we got here. So here's the leaf when you open it. All right. I'll go ahead and open that up too. Let's hit Control O. Here's the leaf. Okay. Oops. I opened up the final version. Let's do it again. Control O. And this is what you should have downloaded. This one. There we go. So just pull this off and make it a floating window, and we're going to hit Control N, and we're going to make a new texture or a new Photoshop file, and I'm going to call this leaf demo 02, and I'm going to make it 24 or 1024 by 1024 pixels. So make sure it's square. And that's the important thing, and this is a good size to start off with for this particular texture because it's pretty close to the same aspect ratio. I'm just going to drag this window out, have this window out, and have them side by side. And then I'm going to click on our original texture that we downloaded, and in the layers window I just want to hold shift and drag that into here, and you'll see it just pops right into the center of this particular texture. Or I should say this new Photoshop file we made, and you can actually close this now, you don't even need it. So what we want to do is, I like to have it rotated up and down, that's just for my own visual purposes, so I'm going to do that really quick here, and I'm going to go to image rotation. I'm just going to go counterclockwise, and I'm going to rotate it that way, and that's it. So now I'm going to take this background and I'm going to just drag it down to the garbage can here and throw it out so I get my transparency back. Now it's important that we have this square aspect ratio because when I bring it into Maya, I don't want to have to change my UVs on my plane that I'm going to use as a reference. So we'll show you how to do that in a second here. So let's save this out, Control Shift S to save, and I'm going to just save it out as a PNG. So save, leaf demo 2, say OK, and we'll go into Maya. There we go. So now I'm here in Maya. I have nothing in the scene yet, and I'm just going to go ahead and bring a plane out. And just for my purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and change the size of my plane to 24 centimeters, even though it's kind of large for a leaf. Well, depending on the leaf, I guess. Probably for this leaf, yes, but it'll help me see it. And so I'm going to name my plane ref underscore leaf demo. All right, and I can go ahead and put that into a layer, and I'll just copy this, Control C, and then double click on layer, and I'll just paste that in there and modify the name. So, and I always leave this layer in here because it'll complain if I try to name things the same. So, and I like to turn it yellow so I know all my reference layers are yellow. And so now I can hide it if I want to. And then let's go ahead and assign a material to this. So right click and hold and go to assign new material. I'm picking a Lambert because it's a flat material, or I should say diffuse material. And if you click on these little arrows here up in your attribute editor, so I'm in this tab, the attribute editor, and I click on this arrow, you can find this Lambert 2. Let's rename it. M underscore, say, leaf 02 underscore demo. The M indicates that it's a material. So I always know if I see M underscore, that's a material. Let's go into the color, and we'll grab that leaf material, or that leaf texture, I should say. So here's the demo 2, say open. And so because it's a PNG and it has transparency, it should come in properly. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 6 on my keyboard, and I should just see the leaf. So there you go. And now I'm going to go to my layers again, and I'm just going to take this so I don't select it. I'm going to make it a reference layer. And then I'm going to go into my top view. And there's a couple ways you can create the actual geo for the leaf. One of the ways that you could do it through just geo is you could use your quad draw tool, and you can basically just draw out the shape of the leaf. I'm actually going to use my curve tool and then do a loft with it. So I'm going to actually go and I'm going to use a Bezier curve, and I'll just click out here and start drawing on top of this thing. So like so. I think in the end, the difference between the Bezier and the quad draw, I think it's going to be pretty close about the amount of time it would take. So, you know, I'm just going to see how well I can get this with the curves. Might be a little bit faster with the Bezier. I've never actually timed it between the two, but I'm just guessing. So we got our 2 curves that are going to be our outer profile, and then we just need one that's in the middle. So, oops, that thing thinks I want to, uh-oh, I hit undo. It thought I wanted to modify that. I actually want to drop a new one here. Oh, maybe that was just Maya showing some kind of weird artifacting. Sometimes Maya will leave stuff in the viewport that it shouldn't. Okay, so we have 3 curves here. 1, 2, 3. You can see those. And you got to make sure that we change these curves into a, we want to make them into a NURBS curve, because otherwise we can't do everything that we want to do with them. So all we have to do is go to modify, and then we go to convert, and then we can say Bezier curve to NURBS, and it's going to just modify them a little bit. And now if I select this control point, I can just look at these, and you know, if I want to pull on these, we have control points instead of like the Bezier points. So if you want to build things this way and then you need NURBS curves afterwards, this is one way to do it. If you want that extra control that the Bezier points give you. So if I want to move this all to the outside of this thing to make sure it's not penetrating, you know, I can go in here now and start modifying this a little bit, like so. So, yeah, that looks fine, and this side looks pretty good. So just maybe pull that out a little bit. There we go. That looks perfect. I just want to have it all outside of this leaf. And so let's look at this one. This one, I want to make this follow the vein in the middle. So it's not a huge deal if it's not perfect. It's just want to, you know, pretty close. So I'm just adjusting it quickly. It doesn't have to be perfect, like I said. You can move this up a little bit. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is make sure that these are all the same amount of control points. And to do that, you just need to go into curves and rebuild, and then pick how many control points you want. So for this one, I can do, let's try 4 at first and see if that's enough. And hit apply. And that looks like it's actually more than enough, although it modified the shape a little bit in a way I don't like. So I'm going to undo that. Let's see what happens if I do 3. Can I get away with 3? Oh, it's on cubic. So just so you know, it's already going to be, it's basically going to add 3 for every span. So it should be more like you're basically getting 3 times 3. So let's see what that happens. Okay. So let's go to control verts. Go. So I can just adjust these. It's a little easier to control when there's less points in there. And then also when you're making your final shape, it'll be a little bit easier to play around with and get the polygons just right. You have to be very cognizant of going too high poly with these leaves, because if you have a ton of leaves, you're going to have problems if it's very, very high poly. So, you know, if it's a hero object and it's close to the camera, you may want to go a little bit higher and make this thing look really nice. But a lot of times you have to be careful. Sometimes you can actually just use a single plane, like I put the reference on, as a leaf texture. But then you get a different problem, which is the transparency, and transparency can actually be very cumbersome to render as well, especially for game engines. But even it can be even hard in actual regular renders, even within Maya. So there's always a trade-off. And so what I do is if I make it pretty close to the outside like this, then it's going to be there's going to be less transparency in the scene. So now I have this pretty well shaped. I'm going to just shift select the next one and then the next one, and then I'm going to go to my loft and I'm going to hold Control, double click it, and then it'll bring up my options. And so initially it should look like this, and you want to change it to polygons, and we're going to change it to general, quads. Make sure you get these steps right. And then I'm going to change it to the last selection here, which is per span number of isoparms, and then do the same thing down here. And then I can hit apply, and you'll see this is the shape that you get from it. Now if you want it to be lower poly, you can basically just lower this number. It's like a multiplier basically, and see it comes out even lower. So actually this is pretty nice. I think this might work just fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that, and let's go ahead and move these verts out a little bit like so. I just want to make sure I'm getting the full shape inside of there. Move that a little bit. That looks pretty good. And we can move this up a little bit because it's kind of strangely stretched there. Maybe move that down a little bit just to balance it out a little. Now we get this curve going on in here, and I can actually, it's not really too bad, but if I just grab these inner verts here, like I'm just Control Shift clicking the inner verts. I don't want any of the exterior verts, the ones that are on the outside border. But if I just grab these and I come up to Mesh, Average Vertices, I can actually just hit G a few times, and it'll basically straighten out these a little bit more if you need it. Let's see. I think that's actually pretty good there. So I just undid once, but this is fine too. Either one is fine. So I like a little bit of that curve in there, but you want to be able to bend this thing with deformers without having any kind of weird kinks in it. And if it's too curvy, like if you get too many of these like loops in here, the deformer is not going to bend it as well. So that's the only reason why I'm changing that. So okay, so let's go ahead and hit W to drop that tool, and let's go ahead and we can start adjusting where this stem is going to start coming off of here, because we're going to make sure we pull a stem off of here. So it's about right there, right there. So, and I think what I'm going to want to do is I only need the stem to have these 2 polygons. So I'm actually going to terminate this vert into here. So I'll just use my my target weld. So I'm going to go target weld that to that, and target weld this one to this one. So now we have triangles here, but I'll fix those. So now we're basically just establishing we have this stem area that we're going to extrude these edges off of. Okay, so let's go up and fix this part up here. So we've kind of got the same ordeal going on up here, where we kind of want to terminate and get rid of like this edge here and this edge here. But if we get rid of those, now we have n-gons. So I just hit Control Backspace, by the way, to delete the edge and the vert. But see, now we have these 5-sided n-gons though, so we don't want that. So what can we do? We can cut into here. So we're just going to cut, and we'll put a cut here, and put a cut here, and then into here, and then drop that there. And then from here, we can just go ahead and let's terminate it to here. Enter, and then we'll do this one to here. Enter, and then so we still actually have a 5-sided. but I wanted to add in an extra vert up here so I can basically get this curve a little bit better. And now this up here though, these can be collapsed together. So we can just hit collapse. And so now we get that nice little point up on top, and we can just move that over a little bit like so. We can drag these. Let's do it like that, and then we'll pull this one back out a little bit like so, so it's not collapsing on itself. You don't want to, so you typically don't want your polygons to be collapsing in on themselves like this one would look like here. So I just pull it out so it's giving a better shape to it. All right, so that looks pretty good. I think we're good. I can actually move this over here if I want to, and then if I want to adjust this little middle part, maybe move those a little bit. There we go. Alrighty. Now this one here, we have these triangles on the end, but this is very, very easy to solve. So I just hold Control, and I'll just add an extra edge in here. And then from here, I just pull this in, like so. So now we have quads instead of triangles there. And I can just adjust this a little bit if I need to. Maybe even move this out a little bit like that. This one's actually, yeah, we need a little extra space there. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and extrude these edges down. Simple. Just hold Shift. If you have your move tool out, you hold Shift, you see an extrude come up. So if you're holding Shift, you drag out like so. You can extrude all the way to there if you want. And then we can rotate it a little bit so it's kind of following that stem better. We can even scale it. Oops. We can scale it a little bit, make it more flow. Oh, we went crazy with our scale. Okay, so I have this thing set to prevent negative scale off. So if I turn that on and I start scaling this, I can actually kind of scale them so they're flat. Okay, but that's not really what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to actually go into my my verts themselves and just use my move tool. I just want to make sure that I'm encompassing the entire texture reference for this. So something like that. And then I'm going to go to my edge and I'm going to extrude out again. Like something like that. And then if I want to scale this up a little bit, I could just widen it a little bit if need be. But I think this will be fine. If you wanted to add another segment there, you could to make it tighter around the reference, but it's not that necessary. This will be fine. The only other thing that I think is bothering me is I think that I want to move maybe this out a little bit more and this one out a little bit more because I want kind of a nice flow to happen between like basically this line right here. I want it to flow, so if I bend this thing I won't get some weird kink in it. So if I have this like way in like this or way out like that, this would be like kind of a weird bend. If I go to do some kind of bending, the geo might look a little funny. So I'm just going to go ahead and just try to make this a little bit more of a smooth line. All right, so now I'm pretty much there. And now I'm going to show a little bit of a trick here. And go ahead and just delete my history, and I'll freeze my transformations just to make sure everything's good. There's a couple ways I can lay out my UVs. So I can come into my UV editing, and I could actually just apply that material onto here, the demo reference material that I made. And if we hide, let's go ahead and hide this. We can see this is the way it's laid out at the moment. So all we need to do is like grab all these faces. We can put a planar on there, planar unwrap, and of course it's not doing quite what we want because of the fact that the planar unwrap is facing in the X direction. So it's just going this way in the X direction. So we want to change that. We have to rotate it. So get your channel box out, and we'll have to rotate it in the X 90 degrees, and then we'll have to probably rotate in the Y back to 0. So, and then we also have this problem with the projection height and width. Since Maya is trying to help out for us, we don't really want that. I'm going to make this the same number for the height and the width. So 632, enter, and there we go. Okay, I actually rotated it 90 degrees in the wrong direction, so it's negative 90. There we go. Okay, so we're really close to having this laid out properly. This is one way to do this. Okay, so I can come into here and I can just scale this down and I can get it right where I want it, make sure that, you know, this thing is right in the right spot. And it would take some tweaking and, you know, maybe moving this around like so. Okay, but I said there's another way to do this. I'm going to show you the other way. All right, so this is one direction you can go. Let's show the other direction. Now remember that we dropped a reference plane on here, okay? And the reference plane basically perfectly fits the texture on it because it's a square reference plane and it's a square texture. So if we actually take that reference plane that we have here, bring it back out, and I'm going to make it so it's not a reference anymore. I should say in my layers it's not a reference anymore, so it's selectable. Can't even tell it's there, but it's there. There it is. And I can grab that reference plane, and I can grab this geo that we just made, and I can combine these. So I go modify, mesh, and then combine. Okay, so now they're one mesh basically, and they're laying right on top of each other. It's completely flat, so it may look a little weird, but that's okay, because what we're going to actually end up doing is I'm going to put a planar map on this entire reference here, but because of the square aspect ratio is causing like a square bounding box to go you know, on this reference, and it's the reference I used, it's actually going to lay out my UVs for this inner part perfectly. So I'll show you how that works. So let's just grab everything. Might sound a little funny at first, but you'll see how it works in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and hit planar map, and of course it's got these screwy numbers still in my channel box. So let me change this back to what I want. So it's 24 by 24, and then we want this to be negative 90, and then we want this to be 90. Actually, so maybe this one's not negative 90. It's just regular 90. Nope, 180. Negative 180. Or 0. Okay. Houston, we have a problem. No, this should work. What did I originally put in? So we should be rotating 180 degrees from here. So 180. Okay, so I think what's going on is I'm actually projecting from the bottom instead of the top. So let's make this negative 90. And now we'll put in 0 here. There we go. Okay, so I made a mistake with my X rotation. And it may be that Maya laid out the projection differently, or maybe I just didn't realize what was going on. So, but this is what it's supposed to look like. So let's go into here as, well, we're in perspective. Let's go to our full Maya Classic. So just to explain what's happened, is that, you know, I had this reference plane here. I use the reference plane to lay out the texture on, but when I go and do that projection, it's actually using the outer borders of the reference plane for the projection. So it basically matches perfectly for the texture, and then that's actually going to grab these inner UVs and basically project them the same way because they're all flat, you know. So I feel like I'm not explaining it well, but the point is if you just delete that outer reference, now you have your textures perfectly laid out just the way you basically did your modeling layout on top of the reference. Okay, so now we have a leaf, and we can take these curves and we can group those. So Control G for grouping, and I'll just call these leaf curves. Leaf curves, if I can spell. There we go. Hide those. So I'm just going to hit Control H to hide them. And let's go ahead and just delete the history. And from here, I personally want to take my stem and straighten it, because I think for the purposes of placing placement of this on a plant, it will be very helpful to have this more straight. Now, basically all I'm doing here is I'm just moving my UVs around, and technically it would be stretching the texture a little bit, but that's okay because it's so small you're never going to really see that stretching that we just did. As you can tell, it still looks pretty darn good. I could actually go into here and take these verts and rotate this straight like this, and then maybe it might, you know, it might stretch a little bit more or whatever, but it should be okay. Actually, it might even look better that way. So there we go. This is laid out nicely. Now we just want to take some of our edges like so. Let's grab, let's just use our select tool to select some of these edges like this. And we'll use our move tool. We can just pull these up a little bit just to kind of give it that that little smooth curve that these leaves would have. We can grab these two verts right here, pull those up just so kind of intermediately between the end point and this point. Just have a nice little curve there. And then from here we can go ahead and just put a bend on here. So let's go ahead and just go deform and nonlinear deformer, bend, and let's rotate this bend. So let's see. Look, we need it in the X direction for sure. So let's say 90 in the X, so that's correct. And then we come over to curve in our channel box, and so we need it to also go 90 in the Z. So 90 in the Z. And now we should be able to curve this the right direction, like so. So there you go. There's your leaf. If you want, you can change, I think it's a low bound in this case. No, I take that back. It's the high bound. You can go like that. And so that you're only curving the one end of it, like so. And then if you need to, if it's too low poly, you could always hit 3 on your keyboard, and that's going to look nice and smooth. So there you go. That's how you can make a leaf. Pretty simple, not too hard. We are getting a little bit of weird stretching when we hit our 3 keys. So if that becomes a problem, you definitely can fix that by doing a little bit of fencing. And let's see here. So fencing would be to add basically like a border around here. And or if we went ahead and actually went to mesh and smooth, you can see we still get the same issue. But if you went into vertex, you can literally like move this back up like so, and then it starts looking, you know, closer to what it initially did. But I don't want to start fencing right now because this tutorial we've got the main part done. I guess in an addendum I can go ahead and add how to fence this in. So I'll do that in the next one. Alright, so just to show you the fencing thing really quick, because I said I wasn't going to do it in the first video, but I figured I'd just add this on to the end just to make this thing so it's not too long, but also not a whole other video. This is what we had. I did remove the bend on here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in basically like an edge that's going to hold this so that it doesn't distort too much. And then I'm actually going to remove this edge. So I'm going to go in here and just go and cut in an extra little edge here. It's going to hold these edges from moving too much so we don't get that weird distortion. And then we don't need this anymore because we've actually got an end gun here. So I'm going to hit Control Backspace and just get rid of that. And then in here, I can go ahead and just, you know, do a connect, or you can do a cut there, hit Enter. And then if you hit 3 on your keyboard now, you can see that you don't get the same kind of distortion that you got before. It is distorting a tiny bit, and you may need just a little bit of adjustment, but it's not anywhere close to where it was before. And the only reason why that's happening is because we're kind of minimizing the area of where the stretching happens. So instead of being this big broad area, we're having just this little tiny area right here where the stretching happens. And you can kind of see it still is stretching. Technically it still is, but you won't see it because it's not as bad. And if we fix this right here, let's double click on here and say preserve UVs. We can just pull that out a little bit. Pull that one out a little bit like so. You know, maybe just pull these a little bit in like that. And now, if we hit 3, you can see you really can't really tell any difference. So, okay, so that's the end of this tutorial. That's how you make a leaf. So go ahead and make a leaf and make a plant. And I do suggest you start off with something simple and then work your way up to harder things to do. Probably don't want to start off with like a big tree and tons of leaves. Maybe just like a simple plant that has a few stems and has some simple leaves on them, and that would be good for this. All right, thanks for watching.